The time by Carrie Chris is 6 p.m. Time for CBX Business News. The business news headlines is brought to you by QMax Wealth Management, making more possible. Jamaica goes digital, Belize breaks the debt cycle, and Bitcoin's record-breaking rally. Hello and welcome to CBX Business News for Monday, July 14, 2025. I'm Unil Wood. Thanks for joining us. Coming up in the newscast locally, Tax Administration Jamaica to roll out its new electronic motor vehicle registration certificates starting July 21. On the regional front, Belize slashes its public debt from 103 to 61% of GDP over 4 years, a development the IMF says signals fiscal turnaround. And on the global stage, Bitcoin hits a new all-time high, fueled by a wave of institutional investment and growing legislative support. Stay tuned as we unpack these stories and more right after our first break.
So much book you need for high school?
I'll show you how to make sure you have all the money for my books and even some extra. It's called budgeting, Dad. Making a budget is the most important thing you can do to track your money. It keeps a record of how much you make, how much you spend, where you spend it, and most importantly, how much you can save. Write down all your income, write down all your expenses, see where you can cut down and allot more money to more important things, like saving.
Let's all get fit. This summer set drip. Hip dips and split. Power in the mind, let's get healthy with it. Sometimes the body's so hard, but everybody wants it. And then your head is so home, and it's so like this. So we gotta go 1, 2, 3. One more now. 1, 2, 3. Let's go. One more now. 1, 2, 3. One more now. 1, 2, 3, go!
The local news is brought to you by Derriman Trading, better from the start. Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean flavors and fragrances, tease the senses, and Pulse Investments. Welcome back to CBX Business News. We begin with the latest regulatory update locally. In a move to modernize and streamline its motor vehicle registration process, Tax Administration Jamaica (TAJ) will begin issuing the new electronic motor vehicle registration certificate, or EMVRC, starting Monday, July 21. With the new system coming into effect, physical copies of the motor vehicle registration certificate, decal or sticker, will be discontinued. Motorists will instead receive a digital version of their emails following a successful transaction. As such, all motorists will now be required to have a valid email address to register or renew their motor vehicle registration, whether they complete the transaction online or at a tax office. To facilitate the transition, the current online motor vehicle registration service will go offline on Thursday, July 17 at 5 p.m. Services will resume at the launch of the new system on Monday. Additionally, all tax offices will be closed to the public on Saturday, July 19 to accommodate this system switchover. While the renewal of private vehicles, commonly referred to as white plate vehicles, can still be done online. All other motor vehicle transactions, whether for new registration or renewal, must be completed at a tax office. This includes public passenger vehicles, diplomatic vehicles, and commercial vehicles. In a bold shift to revolutionize Jamaica's export landscape, veteran trade executive Stephen Dawkins has launched Execute, a consultancy dedicated to helping Jamaican manufacturers and service providers break into competitive global markets following a 30-year corporate career. Dawkins, a respected figure in the region, has been instrumental in scaling brands across North America, Europe, and Central America. His extensive experience includes key roles with J. Ray and Nephew, Jamaica Beverages, Carreras Group, and most recently with Cinco Group, where he transformed the export division into a core business pillar. The Execute founder says his focus is working directly with small and medium-sized businesses to help them evolve into export-ready international operations. He adds that seeing firsthand the challenges companies face and the missed opportunities because products weren't built with export in mind, his goal is to change that. Through hands-on support, Dawkins hopes to reverse this trend and unlock Jamaica's export potential. And the veteran trade executive Stephen Dawkins is raising the alarm on Jamaica's ongoing failure to exceed the US $2 billion export mark. He stresses that growing the economy requires stronger export performance and believes businesses can unlock their potential with the right guidance. According to Mr. Dawkins, in 2014, the national export target was US $2.5 billion, a figure that would help narrow the trade gap. However, the trade expert says Jamaica has never even crossed US $2 billion. He noted that if we're going to grow our economy in a meaningful way, we must export more, while adding that he may be one piece of the puzzle, but believes he can help businesses unlock their potential if they're willing to take the right steps. Mr. Dawkins says his new company, Execute, aims to fill the current gap by offering practical end-to-end support from product development and compliance to market access and distribution engagement. Although Execute is a private sector initiative, Dawkins stressed that it will operate in close collaboration with key export development agencies, such as the Jamaica Promotions Corporation, JAMPRO, and the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association, JMEA. In all the news, Pulse Investments Limited, otherwise known as Pulse, is re-imaging its Villaranai property, shifting from residential development to a phased transformation into Kingston's premier five-star resort. Responding to shareholder queries and in keeping with the Jamaica Stock Exchange disclosure rules, Pulse says the strategic pivot is designed to fast-track revenue and enhance asset value by leveraging existing infrastructure for luxury hospitality. Spearheading the transformation is seasoned hotelier Dimitris Kosvogiannis, now part of Pulse's executive team. Under his leadership, the company is upgrading existing accommodations and amenities to five-star standards, including the addition of a signature spa and gourmet dining experience. Pulse says the phased rollout allows it to tap early revenue, test the market, and reinvest profits into future expansions. Plans also include curated spaces for art and fashion nestled within the property's lush surroundings. Now, to finance the redevelopment, discussions are underway with potential financiers. The company says it maintains strict financial controls and cash flow oversight to safeguard the use of funds. Now to foreign currency trading news. At the end of Monday's trading session, the US dollar is selling for $161.09, the Canadian for $118.27, and the pound for $219.14. The going rate for the euro is $187.63. And from BOJ, we go to trading news on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. 110 stocks traded on the JSE Monday, of which 31 advanced, 55 declined, and 24 traded firm. Leading the winners were MFS Capital Partners, R.A. Williams Distributors, Lasco Distributors, and JMMB Group 10% VR Jamaican Dollar Preference Shares. While the losers were led by Pulse Investments, Jetcon Corporation, Margaritaville Turks, and Key Insurance Company. The main index declined by 572.60 points or 0.19% to close at 305,698.81. The junior market index also declined, but by 13.02 or 0.38% to close at 3,390.04. And from the stock market, we go to our market educations feature, where today we'll be exploring a key concept in global trade, the Most Favored Nation Clause, or MFN. The Most Favored Nation, MFN clause, is a principle in international trade that ensures equal treatment among trade partners. Under World Trade Organization (WTO) rules, a country cannot discriminate between its trading partners. If it offers one country a trade advantage, like lower tariffs or fewer barriers, it must offer the same deal to all other WTO members. In that way, everyone becomes a most favored nation. However, there are exceptions. For instance, countries can form free trade agreements, like CARICOM, that allow special trade terms among group members without extending those benefits to others outside the bloc. And that's it for our market education feature and the end of the local segment. Please stay with us. The regional business news is up next. The local news is brought to you by Derriman Trading, better from the start. Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean flavors and fragrances, tease the senses. And Pulse Investments.
We're here to open a savings account for my son John. I really want him to start saving and managing his own money.
And I need for Save to visit my father in New York.
Okay, based on what you said and our risk assessment, he will qualify for simplified customer due diligence requirements. I'll need your ID, proof of income, TRN, and John's ID as well.
Okay, here you go.
Opening an account is easier than you think using simplified customer due diligence requirements, also called CDD.
Welcome back. We go now to news from across the region. Belize has slashed its public debt by more than 40 percentage points in just 4 years, falling from 103.3% of GDP in 2020 to 61.1% by the end of 2024. According to the International Monetary Fund, IMF, this marks one of the sharpest fiscal improvements in the Caribbean. The IMF, wrapping up its 2025 Article 4 consultation, credited Belize's strong post-pandemic recovery, disciplined fiscal policy, and a strategic debt restructuring, including a landmark debt for nature swap and savings on Petrocarib obligations, as key drivers of the turnaround. But with growth expected to slow to 1.5% in 2025 amid weaker tourism arrivals and agriculture shocks, the IMF warns that without additional measures, the pace of debt reduction will lose steam. The fund recommends that Belize increases its primary fiscal surplus to 2% of GDP by financial year 2026 through a mix of stronger tax revenue, pension reform, and better targeted public spending. Belize's debt trajectory is impressive, but sustaining it requires deeper reforms, the IMF noted, emphasizing the importance of locking in gains through a credible medium-term fiscal strategy. The government has already introduced electronic tax invoicing and strengthened tax compliance measures. However, delays in reforming the public sector pension plan and rising wage pressures could increase fiscal risks if not addressed soon. As political tensions heighten as Guyana's September general election draws closer, the country's financial sector is once again under the spotlight amid renewed scrutiny from the U.S.-sanctioned Mohammed business empire. Azruddin Mohammed, a sanctioned businessman and declared presidential hopeful, has reportedly repeatedly accused the government of weaponizing state institutions to persecute him, particularly as the government severed business ties with his family. But speaking at a recent press conference, Vice President Dr. Bharat Jagdeo reiterated that the sanctions were imposed independently by the U.S. Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC, and not the government. He, however, noted that the government has a critical duty to manage the economic and regulatory consequences stemming from the sanctions to protect the country's financial sector.
We didn't sanction him, the U.S. did. But we're obligated once he is sanctioned. This is a serious, serious business. Very few people in the world are sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury. The more common form of sanction is the visa withdrawal. But when you get sanctioned by the Treasury, you can't do business with U.S. entities anywhere in the world. If you're local and you do business with the Mohammed, you're subjected, or you could be subjected to a law enforcement action or be sanctioned yourself. The OFAC statement says this.
Vice President of Guyana, Dr. Bharat Jagdeo. In other news, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves has issued a sharp call for improvements at Massey supermarkets in St. Vincent, citing concerns about poor product variety and subpar store appearance when compared to other regional branches. Speaking during a recent press briefing, Prime Minister Gonsalves revealed that after raising the matter with a former senior executive of the parent company, steps are now being taken to assess the issues locally.
And I raised the issue about the uneven quality of the Massey supermarket in St. Vincent compared to say Barbados and St. Lucia, not to talk about Trinidad. And he told me that he contacted the chief executive in Trinidad, and they said they will send someone to have a look at what the complaints are about and try and deal with it in St. Vincent.
The Prime Minister says his comments are not directed at store employees, but rather at the company's overall operations and management standards in the country.
They say, well, Ralph criticized the workers at Massey. I never opened my mouth one moment about the workers at Massey. And I got no complaints about the workers at Massey. I got complaints about how the shelves are, the general appearance of the place, and asked that, listen, let's improve it.
Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves. And from St. Vincent, we go to Trinidad and Tobago for trading news on the TTSE. 22 securities traded on the TTSE Monday, of which 7 advanced. 7 declined, and 8 traded firm. Leading the winners were Prestige Holdings, One Caribbean Media, Trinidad Cement, and Grace Kennedy, while the losers were led by the West Indian Tobacco Company, Angostura Holdings, Trinidad and Tobago NGL, and National Flour Mills. Other results include the All-TNT Index declining by 2.21 to close at 1,490.27. The Composite Index declining by 0.94 to close at 1,019.95. And the Cross-Listed Index advanced by 0.06 to close at 72.34. The SME Index also advanced, but by 0.07 to close at 91.40. And we take a short break, but please stay with us. Nielsen Rose is up next with our International Business News segment.
I'm trading stocks to achieve my financial goals.
I'm also trading stocks to achieve my financial goals.
Start a conversation with the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Check jamstockx.com for information and a list of registered stockbrokers. You can also call the Jamaica Stock Exchange at 876-967-3271 for information on how to begin. I am achieving my financial goals.
I'm achieving my financial goals.
Welcome back, and thanks for staying with us. In the international news today, Bitcoin jumped over 2% on Monday, breaking above $122,000 and setting a new all-time high, with a market capitalization now estimated at $2.4 trillion. The cryptocurrency has solidified its position among the world's most valuable assets. The rally is being driven by strong institutional demand, particularly through spot ETFs, alongside a supportive U.S. policy environment and favorable global macroeconomic conditions. Analysts also cite growing concerns over the U.S. fiscal outlook as a key factor. President Donald Trump's recently passed tax cut and spending bill, which raised the debt ceiling by $5 trillion, has intensified fears about long-term debt sustainability. Adding to the bullish momentum are expectations of a further Federal Reserve rate cut, with markets increasingly pricing in a shift towards looser monetary policy. Trump has continued to apply political pressure on Fed Chair Jerome Powell to lower borrowing costs in an effort to stimulate economic growth. Chinese banks issued 2.24 trillion won in new loans in June 2025, marking the highest level in 3 months. This was a sharp increase from the 620 billion in May and well above the market expectations of 1.8 trillion. The figure also surpassed the 2.13 trillion recorded in June 2024, driven by a seasonal lending surge and a rise in government bond issuance. June typically sees strong credit activity as banks ramp up lending to meet quarterly targets. This year, the government front-loaded bond sales further boost financing momentum. Total social financing, a broad measure of credit and liquidity, rose to 4.2 trillion, up from 2.29 in May and 3.3 billion a year earlier, and well above the 3.65 trillion forecasted. Meanwhile, outstanding loan growth held steady at 7.1%, slightly above expectations, but still near the lowest levels since 1998. M2 money supply growth accelerated to 8.3%, up from 7.9% in May and ahead of the 8.1% projected. WTI crude futures climbed above $69 per barrel on Monday, building on Friday's 2% gain as markets braced for potential new U.S. sanctions on Russia that could tighten global oil supplies. U.S. President Donald Trump plans to make a major statement on Russia, fueling speculation about further measures. On Sunday, he confirmed plans to spend Patriot air defense systems to Ukraine, expressing frustration over Russian President Vladimir Putin's unwillingness to negotiate an end to the conflict. Meanwhile, reports suggest that EU envoys are nearing agreement on an 18th sanction package, which may include a lower price cap on Russian oil. However, gains were limited by concerns over the broader economic impact of U.S. trade policy. Trump recently imposed 30% tariffs on goods from the EU and Mexico, adding to a growing list of countries facing new duties starting August 1, following a series of tariff announcements last week. China's exports rose 5.8% year-on-year in June to US $325.2 billion, slightly surpassing market projections of a 5% increase and accelerating from 4.8% growth in May. The uptick came amid a temporary easing of tariff pressures ahead of the August 1 deadline. A standout was the 32% month-on-month surge in rare earth exports, likely reflecting progress from agreements reached in June to ease restrictions and restore global supply. These agreements followed a series of accords signed between the US and China aimed at reopening rare earth trade after export controls imposed in April disrupted supply chains and forced shutdowns at some auto plants. By destination, exports increased to Japan 6.6% year-over-year, Taiwan 3.4%, EU 7.6%, but fell sharply to the United States 16.1% year-over-year. For the first half of 2025, total exports rose 5.9%, reaching $1.8 trillion. Key export categories saw gains, including fertilizers 25.9%, agricultural products 1.8%, and textiles 1.8%. And those were your international business stories. After the break, join Neil for your recap.
Welcome back, and now to recap our top stories. THA rolls out new electronic motor vehicle registration certificates starting July 21. Regionally, Belize slashes public debt to GDP by over 40 percentage points over 4 years. And on the international scene, Bitcoin hits a new all-time high on Monday. Those were the stories making today's CBX Evening News. On behalf of Nielsen Rose and the entire production team, I'm Neil Wood, wishing for you a splendid evening. And thanks for watching CBX, your region, your business, your source.
I'm Sunil Smith, Project Manager with Junior Achievement Jamaica. You're watching Caribbean Business Exchange. Your region, your business, your source.
Hi, I'm Nielsen Rose, host of Let's Talk Stocks, reminding you that health is indeed wealth and time is really money. Why not spend a little time with us? Weekday mornings, 9 to 9:30 a.m. for your daily dose of business, economic, and investment insights.